highly sensitive people, or HSPs. So, HSPs, also known as maybe an empath. On a Myers-Briggs personality test, they tend to be INFJ type personalities. Now, what you'll find interesting, is that someone like myself, you might assume the way I look, the way I communicate, the level of confidence maybe I have around people, that I wouldn't be an INFJ, that I would be this extroverted person who just comes naturally. I'll actually tell you that I'm more of a highly sensitive person. I'm much more of an introvert. Like, I don't get energized being around people. I get energized being in solitude. I get energized being by myself, so I can go out and give people the best version of myself once I'm charged up. Being around people for extended periods of time actually drains me. So any of you introverts out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, HSPs are highly sensitive people. This is obviously a term that can get thrown around, and in some way one could argue that in some capacity everyone has sensitivities to things. I get it. And there's even this concept of highly sensitive children. And I'm going to talk about that in another video, because my daughter Zia, who's 5 at the age of this video, my wife and I, Lauren, would say that she fits the criteria of what a highly sensitive child is. And I'm going to again do a video on that to help with you parents out there, because you might be struggling with this stuff, thinking that your child's just got behavioral issues, ADHD, or something's wrong. And I'm here to tell you that very often nothing is wrong, and it's a system that's putting labels on these kids. And I know that to be true because many years ago I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, severe social anxiety, and ADHD, and I was heavily medicated for over a decade. And now I'm medication free for 12 years. And it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around that, because when I talk about mental health and diagnosis, and whether it be ADHD or highly sensitive people or whatever, and I say that I don't think some of these things are what people think they are, that some of these things maybe don't even exist in the way that we think, people get triggered, man. People get freaking butthurt and defensive. And part of the reason is because they haven't figured out their own journey yet. They haven't figured out their own health, their own psychology. They're dependent on this diagnosis to kind of validate why they feel the way they do, rather than taking power back and saying, hey, this is just a state that I'm in right now. What are the variables that are driving this brain chemistry, and what levers can I pull to improve that state? I mean, even if it was a true diagnosis, that is a true brain thing, like, for me, I want to know that I can change anything in my life. That's just the way I am. And that's my choice. You can choose to remain the same, and that's completely fine by me. But I'm going to choose a different path. And I know many of you guys relate to that. So HSPs are highly sensitive people. They're basically people that are almost hypersensitive to stimulus. So whether it be bright light, I find that being out here, it's overcast, but I find it quite intense. Like, I'll often have to wear sunglasses when I'm outside, but I'll intentionally take my sunglasses off, because I don't just want to be dependent on wearing sunglasses all day. I want to get sun into my eyes, obviously for the health benefit. But loud music, bright lights, like bright interior light, a lot of light outside, loud music, loud people, a lot of like commotion going on, big crowds. I find that these things, I can tolerate them, but they drain me. I can feel like my essence being drained. And highly sensitive people tend to be quite empathic and almost like an emotional charcoal filter. So we can feel people's intention, we can feel people's energy. I can walk into a room and sort of feel the vibe of someone. I can even walk into a place and almost feel the energy in a place. I know that sounds just bizarre to some people. Some of you guys won't understand that, but some of you will. But I can definitely, and I can even feel the energy of a person through social media, online, through the way they communicate. Like I vibe with certain people, and other people, I'm like, they're giving me like a weird energy. And very often when I meet them, or if I do meet them, it's proven correct. I also find that as a HSP, it can be quite hard to be in the entrepreneurial business world, because in the entrepreneurial business world, a lot of people love to talk on the phone. They love to get on video calls and talk on the phone and hang out like that. Like, people enjoy talking on the phone and just talking and hanging out. That, to me, it's like the opposite. Like, I don't enjoy that at all. That actually drains me. Like, I don't want to... I like to help people. I love to help people. And I like to connect with people too. But I find that a lot of, like, interaction and a lot of stimulus drains my system. And so I've had to learn different tools and coping mechanisms to make it through. And a part of it is like my sleep-wake cycle. I always go to bed pretty early. Like, when I go to different events, a lot of the time people will go out at nighttime and drink and hang out. I won't do any of that. I'll go to my hotel room and decompress, call my wife and daughter, decompress, have my meal, kind of wind down, do a little bit of like work prep, get my evening routine locked in, and then I go to bed and just like sleep. And I actually enjoy that. And it's the same thing when I'm interacting with people, like I'm hanging out with people. I find that I can spend some good quality time with people for maybe 3 or 4 hours, but then after that I need to like have my own space again. I don't like to spend all day interacting with people. That typically will drain my fuel tank to a point where I feel like I'm no longer enjoying the experience anymore. And so for the longest time I used to think something was wrong with me. I used to think, why am I so antisocial? Why am I so weird? Why am I so awkward? And now I just think to myself, it is what it is. I'm very, very good at certain things. Much better at most things than a lot of people. Like, I'm very disciplined. I have a lot of knowledge when it comes to health and nutrition and optimizing your body and your mind and all these things. And I have a level of insight about life. But I'm not the marathon runner when it comes to social interaction and a lot of other things. And I've had to learn to be okay with that. You know, and part of it is like, it magnifies when you become a parent. Like, when you become a parent, that highly sensitive aspect of you will often get triggered. And that's also why I've learned in my business, for example, why I've learned to do a lot of my interactions with my students through emails, messages, and audio messaging. I don't do a lot of calls, because part of what I found would happen was that our daughter, who's also highly sensitive, she would have these tantrums or these challenges, and right before I'm meant to do a call. And because highly sensitive people tend to be like emotional charcoal filters, and I'll talk to you about that in a second, it would be very hard for me to like get my state back to a place where I'm like calm and focused and collected. I feel very drained, and the last thing I want to do is then get on and interact with people. So I've had to kind of almost like adapt my workflow around these things. But it doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it bad. I mean, some of the transformations I've created for people are absolutely miraculous because of the systems I've created, because of what I know. And so I realize that it works, but it's just different. And so with highly sensitive people, very often they're like an emotional charcoal filter, where if someone does something, or someone acts in a certain way, or someone says something, it's very hard for you to not sort of let it like permeate you. That's why I have to train every day. It's why you see me, it's why I do a lot of the physical things, because I find that when I get all that internal like pressure, I need to express it physically to get it out of my system. Whereas like my wife Lauren, she's different. Like, she could have an altercation with someone, she could have a challenge with someone online, she could have someone email and be disgruntled, and she just kind of, it's just like water over a duck's back. It doesn't bother her. And there's a lot of people out there who are like that, where they just don't care. You know, like there's people on social media that can post stuff and they don't get triggered. They can post very controversial things and they don't react negatively at all. In fact, they almost laugh at it. That's always been a struggle for me because of that emotional charcoal filter aspect. It's gotten better with time. Like, it gets better as you become more aware of it. And you sort of challenge yourself to move into it. Like, you do things to challenge yourself to move into the thing. Like, Like the other day, I posted a reel on Instagram talking about how I don't actually think ADHD is like real. Yes, I think you're going to have issues with behavior and issues with attention, but I think the majority of what looks like ADHD and ADD is like poor diet, not enough exercise, poor sleep, alcohol consumption if you're an adult, not enough like outdoor time, and being forced to sit and just like look at a computer screen or look at a textbook and like not move. And it's a byproduct of all those things coming together that just like de-optimize your chemistry. And I came out and said that, and I had people like get pissed off. Now, 5 or 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had the courage to do that. Now I'm like, whatever. It is what it is. Like if someone's got a problem, whatever, man. Like I'm not going to be able to appease everyone. But it's still a work in progress. Like every day is a challenge where you have to push yourself into that resistance and face that resistance head on. But the whole point is that highly sensitive people on the Myers-Briggs personality test, they tend to be INFJ. I'm INFJ like A, so assertive. I'm curious, what are you on the Myers-Briggs personality test? Drop it below. If you haven't done it, it's kind of interesting. But also, they tend to be empaths. They tend to be people that are very, they're able to read a room. They're able to read people's energy. They tend to be people that are more introverted. And you'd be surprised. Because most people wouldn't think that someone like me is like that. Maybe if you read my Facebook posts, you might. Because my Facebook posts are a lot more deep and insightful. Like I don't think a lot of men, I don't want to say are capable, but I think a lot of men struggle to express themselves. They have this big brick wall up. They can't express themselves to save themselves. And so for someone like me who's very expressive, I think a lot of men see that and it's almost like challenging for them. Because it makes them feel like, oh wow, like I can't be like that. I can't do that. Or they maybe don't even understand it. But the point being, and I want to close with this. So there's actually a book. I forget the author, but it's called Highly Sensitive People. And it's also a same author who wrote Highly Sensitive Children. So go check that out, because it's not to say you need to live into some diagnosis or some label. Like whether it be a personality test, a psychiatric diagnosis, this type of thing. I'm not telling you to like adopt the label and be the thing. I'm just saying, hey, if it can help you understand yourself a little bit better and accept maybe aspects of yourself that you used to think weren't very good, but also shine light on things that you need to change and you should change, go for it. So as a highly sensitive person who's out there in the entrepreneurial space, who's online, who's on social media, trust me, I get it when it comes to the mental drain. It often feels like being like Neo being plugged back into the Matrix, going into the Matrix. But also recognize that there's good people out there who need our help. And that you don't have to do all the conventional things that a lot of people do. You don't have to spend all day on the phone. You don't have to conform to all the things that a lot of people do. You don't have to stay out all night yahooing and drinking if you don't want to. You don't even have to go. But you have to build the courage to draw those boundaries and not be a people pleaser. Because that's going to be the challenge for many of you guys, is the people pleasing. You'll go out, you'll stay out late because you don't want to be the odd one out. You'll drink the drink because you don't want to be the odd one out. You'll get on those calls because you don't want to be the odd one out. And you end up draining yourself and losing yourself in the process. You need to be clear on who you want to become and set those boundaries.